So guys, I'm running Bodie first, and we haven't really been seeing a whole ton, but the guys have been getting into some yellow jacks. So I'll switch over to some of their GoPros and I'll show you what they are getting into. You guys, welcome underwater and welcome to the voiceover. Now, originally I did a whole intro on the boat, but unfortunately it didn't record the audio correctly. But while I have you here, do me a favor, click that like button, subscribe to more videos like this, and we're gonna go ahead and do some dives. This first dive is actually not my GoPro that's on top of my head, it's Jake's. He's one of the divers that's been with us. He's been on multiple trips. Awesome diver, awesome dive buddy. He starts making one of his first drops. And also do me a favor, go ahead and follow him on Instagram. He has a YouTube channel as well, also check that out. And just the fact that he wears the GoPro makes the videos 1,000 times better. The area we're diving, we're drifting a little bit and we're on some small reef structure, and we haven't really gotten a whole lot of fish, so he went ahead and lined up on a yellow jack, pulled the trigger and brought him up to the surface. I think he got 2 yellow jacks just before this, and one of them he needed a backup shot, and this one he actually didn't. So the one he's actually putting in the boat after this is the one he got a backup shot on, and I think it was shortly after this, but I was also in the boat during the time. Mr. Jake handling it. Oh yeah, you got the biggest one now.
Not a bad one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Nice job. Yeah, just chuck him in, I'll handle him. Good work. That one beat you up?
Huh? Yeah, I hit him bad, dude. So he took all my reel line on me.
So did he, KP got you on the backup?
KP got me on the backup. He saved the day for us.
Right on.
But it ran his eyeball for me.
Oh, sick. No wonder his eye was all jacked up. Are they, did Ben get a fish?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Now it's time for me to hop in the water. Now right off the bat, once I hopped in the water, I saw that Ben had shot a nice yellow jack. That goes to show that there's probably plenty of yellow jacks down there, but what I'm really hoping for in this spot are some kind of muttons or grouper on the reef. Now here we go, prepping for one of my kind of early dives early on, and on this whole day I was just doing crazy, not only deep but also really long intervals of diving. But one thing that was really important is I made sure I had ample amount of time on the surface. So if I was down for 2 minutes, I was at the surface for at least 4 minutes, and I never really broke that rule, and if I did, I would feel uncomfortable, so I never did it. But this is the first drop. Ended up going down. I'm really hoping for a mutton, like I said before, or possibly something on the reef. And even if you make a drop, say you miss the reef by a little bit, there's always the chance of something hanging out off of the reef or coming from the reef to you. Now I decided to go all the way to the bottom. It's, I believe, yeah, like 71 feet to the sand. And once I get there, I want to kick up a little bit of sand. I want to do a little bit of grunting, hoping to bring in not only a yellow jack, but I know that muttons also like to come into the grunting noise as well. But I slowly scan, laying flat on the bottom, doing the grunting, like I said, scratching a little bit along the ocean floor, and sure enough, it brings in something. But unfortunately, it's not a mutton, but it's what we've actually been shooting a ton before. Some yellow jacks off in the distance, one came in close, landed the gill plate shot, go ahead and ripped him up, and unfortunately, once I shot that guy, some bigger yellow jacks come in, which were significantly bigger, and I would have much rather had that. If I had been a little bit more patient, maybe I would have been better off, but I was kind of nearing the end of my dive, and it was a decently long dive, so decided to take the first opportunity I had and get the monkey off the back and go ahead and secure some dinner for tonight. And if you notice my GoPro, I'm scanning the surface, just making sure I look out for my buddy divers so I'm facing them once I hit the surface and I can call out to them if I need anything.
Got a yellow jack, yeah. Medium one. You're gonna need 2 hands to pull this one in. Yeah, oh yeah. It'll eat. 4 yellow jacks on the boat. We all got one. Whose is the biggest? We should do a test before we pull them out. No, really? I thought mine was just like tiny. No. Meat shot's a holding shot. Yeah, I'd be curious to see who has the bigger one. You sure? They're all really close. They're all really close.
Not the biggest yet.
I honestly thought it was like the smaller of the one. Like.
No, mine was monster.
Now I'm taking you on another one of my dives here. Got the little countdown. Go ahead, hold your breath with me as I make it to the bottom. I forgot how deep this one is, but it's roughly the same area, and you'll see exactly what I was talking about on the previous dive, where if you don't land right on the spot, it's okay, because you can hopefully pull stuff off of the main structure, or maybe find something out in the sand. And you can see from my GoPro, I'm trying to scan around. I'm doing a little bit of spinning as I'm heading towards the bottom, and I don't really see much. I know we're not at the main area because there was a lot more life whenever we did make a pass on the main area. But even though there is a little bit of reef, I kind of veer myself in that direction, and I at least want to land and face that direction, hoping that there's something popping its head out. But I go ahead and inch my way over to this reef, and I do a lot of grunting, a lot of dusting in the sand. And it actually, I thought this was the structure, but come to find out it really wasn't, and you'll see why here in just a minute. Off to my right, I just start seeing a massive amount of fish, angelfish, Goliath grouper, everything coming from the direction I'm facing right now. And that goes to show you don't have to land on the actual structure. And I know off in the distance, the main cave, crack, where all the fish congregate, we're over that direction. But you can see how everything just came to life once I landed, because everything was so curious. And I was thinking about shooting one of those mangroves. They were a little small, but you see just everything starts coming my direction. And there's a big Goliath off in the distance starting to come in. And that goes to show it, even if you dive and don't hit the mark exactly, you know, you already did a breathe up, you're already down almost to the bottom or to the bottom. So go ahead and make the dive, just, you know, make the best of the dive. So that's a little bit of advice. I wanted to kind of share that little dive with you. And comment below if you found that somewhat helpful or even interesting. After diving that whole area, it was on a little bit of the shallower side. Well, I guess 70s is shallow these days. But I wanted to get off into a little bit of a deeper area and kind of challenge ourselves a little more. I know it's kind of a long shot to get a fish, but we decided to hit up some wrecks in the area. And again, the visibility wasn't fantastic. You could see getting to the bottom, didn't really open up a whole lot. The current out where the wrecks were was absolutely pumping, but that meant there was a ton of life. But even though there was a ton of life, like you see here, there wasn't a whole lot of fish to shoot, except whenever I look down, I just see a ton of Goliaths almost like sitting at my fins waiting for me to shoot something. But also, if you get vortexed in these fish like this, it's always a good thing. But you see right in the bottom of the screen, I don't know if you can see it, there was some giant black grouper down there. And they're probably maybe 30, 40 pounds. I was in no state to go make a drop on them, and especially since they were up current. So ended up making another drop here in just a minute, and again, you just see the amount of life that is on this place. And let's see, or just hang out for this next dive. Like I said before, I do the serious intervals at the surface, especially if I do a longer dive. That dive was only around like just a little over a minute. I went ahead and we re-drifted, reset, so I had a whole like probably 10 minutes of surface interval out of the water, catching my breath, replenishing oxygen. the way we make these drifts on these wrecks is we have the flashers just to pull in any pelagics. That's what you see hanging down there. It's like a little teaser. And also that helps kind of pinpoint where your divers are. There's a nice orange buoy at the top of it, and it allows the boat driver to see it, as well as other divers. When you're making dives, you kind of go up and down and around and near the flashers. So this area I'm diving, it wasn't really on the wreck. We kind of drifted a little bit past it, but I wanted to still make sure I got down to the bottom. And this one was pretty deep. I think I was like almost 90 feet, I'd say. You can see, again, I didn't really go exactly on top of the structure, but I just went to the sand off to the side a little bit, do a little bit of grunting, kick up some sand, hoping to bring in something. But I brought in something, but it wasn't really the ideal species. But you'll see the jacks come congregating around me, and whenever that happens, it's always a good thing, because other things think there's a food opportunity, and other snapper grouper sometimes come out and take a look. Just like there was a little mutton. Well, there's a barracuda, but there was a little mutton that was coming in a little too short, and as well as these sharks. And another thing about shark behavior I wanted to touch on, you see how chill they are? They're kind of not doing anything, but what I start doing is I start kicking my fins to head to the surface, and as I do that, it like triggers something in the sharks, and it just turns up, starts beelining, and then I just stop kicking slowly, and then it just veers back down to the bottom. And then the whole rest of the way, I don't want to sit there and, keep an eye on my fins, so I just slowly ascend to the surface in no rush, not burning much oxygen. But yeah, you see how they just, if I just kick my fins a little bit, they just get all fired up. So I just decide to kind of cruise up, let my buoyancy take me all the way up to the surface. We wanted to make one more pass in this zone because we saw all the life, but there weren't really many shooter fish. I was kind of feeling good about that last drop. Even if I wasn't close to the structure, at least that means the sharks aren't around. But I did see a small mutton off in the distance, which means there's potential of even more muttons out in the sand. So I make a drift a little bit ahead of this structure, make a drop, and I go all the way to the bottom, and that's like my plan on this dive. I want to make sure I stop kicking whenever I'm at least halfway to the bottom, and at this point I'm just free falling all the way to the sand, and that's my goal. I see a little bit of like kind of broken up reef. You see me kind of concentrated on it right there. I scan out in the sand a little bit, but I want to make sure I get all the way to the bottom before I really get nestled up and face that little reef section. And again, if there's nothing on it, there may be stuff around it, and that'll kind of pull stuff into me, and sure enough it does. I'm facing that area, descend all the way to the bottom. There's a mutton that's coming in. At first I was like, I'm not sure if he's big enough, but then as he got closer I was like, oh, he's 100% big enough. Ended up throwing him on the stick in the boat, and he was about 19 inches. They got to be 18. And at this point, there were no muttons in the boat, so I really wanted to make sure we secured some good snapper, good quality fish before we headed in. Now, this is only halfway through the day of diving. We go to an area that is teeming with life, and I have some insane dives. And so does my buddy Jake as well. He has a kind of a little finagle or a situation he got himself in. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere, and check out these dives here in just a minute once I get this fish to the surface. This new zone we're at is a little shallower, but it's actually reef, and we come across these rubble piles while we're diving this reef, and I do pluck something off of the reef, which was a pretty sweet thing to happen. Kind of a rarity, and realistically I wouldn't take this shot unless we were really meat hunting, which on this day we were. But the current was kind of moving a little bit, and I decided to make a drop once I kind of saw the reef, and that's what I was pointing to my buddy there. I was saying, you know, hey, there's the reef. Let's make sure we make a drop and try to make the best of it. So I'm in front of this reef area. Nice hogfish comes in. Normally I don't take hogs, but I see the lit up hogfish with the snout, and I had to take a rip at him. I shot a little high. I was kind of going for a stone shot, and whenever that happens, either let the fish take the spear and give him slack, or try to get your hands on the fish as soon as you can. Otherwise, if I would have let that fish struggle a little more, he probably would have tore out. And really only just the only thing I could have done better was make a safer shot and just go head or gill plate, which is probably, in hindsight, that's what I should have done. Now we are about to get into some serious diving. So we anchored on this spot. It's like a rubble pile, and we threw out a big float line behind the boat. And so we were making drops at the boat and just kind of staying on the rock pile and coming up and just grabbing the float line and pulling ourselves back to the boat. And the best part was we had somebody in the boat paying attention to all the divers. So when they would drop, when they would surface, we were taking turns. Really good space between the dives in case somebody ran into some issues. We could drop off the boat and go back and help them. But these are the little rock piles. They were in between, around like between 70 to 80 feet, maybe a little over 80 is what to the sand is what these rock piles were in. And again, I don't want to just go down and sit on top of the rock pile. I'd rather go in the sand and see what's off in the distance than work my way to the rock pile. And that's exactly what I did on this dive. And you can see once I landed, there were muttons all in the distance, and they were small ones, but there were also some really big ones. And this was kind of a recon dive. Wasn't really going to pursue any fish just unless they came into me. This one kind of does, but the fact that I saw giant muttons off in the distance, I wasn't going to settle for just one of these, you know, medium-sized ones. So we took multiple drops on this spot, hoping to pull in one of these giant muttons, but they just knew the range we had, or there was some other area, some other structure they were hanging out on. But I was kind of just crawling along the sand, really hoping I could close the gap on one of these guys. I took a long shot on that guy, not even close, but I saw what they were kind of hanging around, and I dove on those little pyramids, but unfortunately they weren't really hanging around right on them. They were just all scattered throughout the sand, so it was kind of a crapshoot if I was going to be able to get a mutton or not. But I had my hopes high, and I was really hoping I would at least land a really big one because they were around. We're going to switch up gears a little bit. Now, what I've been doing is I'm going down to the bottom, sitting there, hoping for muttons and kind of creeping along the bottom. Jake did a different tactic on this dive. We're diving the same area. This, you can see as he goes down, he sees the structure. He kind of hovers a little bit above it, and it works out well for him. But he does come into an issue, and it's really has nothing to do with him. He actually handled it really well. He goes down, hovers above this structure, and a nice yellow jack, one of the bigger ones of the day, comes in, takes a really good shot on it, and for some reason his gun just did a serious muzzle wrap. And so he tries to free the muzzle and realizes immediately, like, that's not happening and I'm not going to be able to horse this fish up. So he thought quickly, hooked up his belt reel to his line, and started letting his belt reel line out just so he can get to the surface and take care of the situation once he has fresh air in his lungs. And that's why I highly recommend using a belt reel at all times.
I got it. Not the button.
Now, honestly, if there's one thing I'd want you to take from this video is definitely wearing a belt reel. A lot of people just use them to hold on to pole spears. If you get into a pinch or get into a situation where you need to let out line or anything, I've used it multiple times. always highly recommend have a belt reel with a little tuna clip attached to your weight belt at all times, and just make it a part of your normal accessory. I love the Aussie reels, the Rob Allen reels. Those are probably my two favorite. I do like the Rob Allen because it does have a quick release. So if something happens, you can release the belt reel rather than dropping your whole belt. But this is a dive after Jake made his. The fact that he got a nice yellow jack, I was like, okay, I saw a bunch of muttons, nice yellow jack. Let me go ahead, really make a good dive. Dropped to the sand, did a bunch of grunting, kicked it up, and I think like right there, at one point here, obviously you see the Goliaths come in, they got all fired up on, you know, the commotion going down, but off in the distance I saw a really big mutton, and I'm talking like a 15-pounder off in the distance beyond some of these Goliaths. I think I pursue him on this dive, or I go out kind of towards them. Oh yeah, I think so. So I think right now they're kind of, I don't know if I can see it, but I think there's a mutton off in the distance, like a really, really big one. I don't know if I can see it on this. Yeah, right there. Yeah, you see him kind of come in and then just veer away. This guy wanted nothing to do with me. And sometimes that's just how the game goes. I'm not going to sit down there for another minute, do a bunch of grunting, and try to hope that this thing comes in and almost black out. So I knew the limit of my dive, wanted to head up to the surface, didn't want to push that 2-minute mark too much. I just cut my losses, headed up. Yeah, you can see Jay kind of sorting his stuff out there. But it's just time to reset and make another drop.
Dude, I passed on so many fish.
Yeah, dude, there is a lot.
I passed on so many fish to shoot like a 15-pound mutton, but he was just out of range.
Now, unfortunately, I started my GoPro just a little bit late. I was probably halfway to the bottom, so you don't get a true guesstimate on time, but still see if you can hold your breath. If you can see my left hand, I'm holding like 3 sardines. The whole point of this was, instead of letting chum out at the surface and let it drift back and kind of get off the spot or take a while to get down, I went all the way straight down to the bottom, went to the top of the structure, and just started shredding up sardines before I got to the sand. And once I got to the sand, I kind of turned around, kept an eye on those sardines. And what I did was, it's almost like a bait trap that I sent. I just wanted things to get really fired up, and then I would just attack anything coming in to get them off the sand. I was really hoping that this would work for that mutton, that really big one. But unfortunately, it just, I mean, it worked as the fact that all the fish got really fired up on it, but it was crazy. It kind of seemed like everything just settled down, and I wasn't seeing any Goliaths anymore. So I think it was just a moment there where just a lot of fish were around. I think there's a little scamp grouper right in front of me, but I wasn't going to pay him any attention. I was really holding out, hoping for a bigger fish, better opportunity. But unfortunately, nothing came into the chum. Just fed the fish down there, gave him a little meal, cut my losses, headed up. But the thing is, we found a couple of rock piles like these. The next couple ones proved to be well worth it, so don't go anywhere. You got some awesome breath holds coming up, so stay tuned for that. I hope you guys are ready for a fail. Again, it's one of those things where I'm going to learn from my mistake, and I hope you do too. So when I have my gun there, I'm just holding onto the boat. My gun is kind of just, I have it around my wrists, and it's just flowing around with the waves, kind of bouncing around. Obviously, my muzzle, I always practice muzzle awareness, so I always have my safety off, and I always assume my safety is off. I'm always conscious of where the tip of my spear is pointing. Just saying that, keep in mind, because it's a little bit of foreshadowing to what's about to happen. So you'll see these This structure is a little bit different than the one before. There's a lot of scattered rock off of the structure, the main rubble pile, which is something that I really like. It's a little more area for fish and bait to hang out. You see right there, there's just bait all over this wreckage, and there was a little mutton off in the distance, and I turn my head and I see a nice mutton. Actually, no, not yet. I turn my head back here somewhere. I turn my head. Not there. That's not the mutton. That one's a little too small. But it's great because I have something to compare this next one to. If I ever turn around. I should have turned around earlier, because maybe I would have seen it before. Oh my gosh. Okay. I know where it's at. It's right there. No. I'm just laughing because... Alright, there it is. I know the area I saw the fish at. So that's a really nice mutton. Go line up, have him dead to rights right there, and go to pull, and my safety's on. Then I rushed my shot, and he was already tailing away from me, and I missed. What happened was, when I was bouncing around, my safety kind of sticks out a little bit. It brushed against my wetsuit or something, turned my safety on without me knowing. So what I'll probably do is I'll either epoxy or I'll shave down the safety so that just doesn't happen again. And I know some of you might be like, oh my gosh, just the safety, you need to, you know, keep that thing on because it's really important. Honestly, you shouldn't trust a safety. This way I know I can never trust a safety, so I always am like practicing muzzle awareness, and whenever we hop in the boat, we point the guns kind of out the corner of the boat to make sure that we're always safe, and they're always pointing a safe direction to where if they do fire off, they go off into the ocean. I've never had any incidences practicing this, but again, it's something you have to think about. There's a lot you have to think about when you're diving. That was just a little thing I wanted to touch on. If you have any questions or comments about it, feel free to leave them down below. I try to comment back and reply as much as I can, and if I don't get back to immediately, eventually I will. Keep them coming, and I love reading to see what you guys have to say. So this dive is one of the epic ones. I'm already been down there for 53 seconds, and this is like no exaggeration. Like what you see on the time is exactly what you see at the surface, and you'll see at the end of this exactly what I'm talking about. And this was literally my last dive. I told the guys, I was like, I'm gassed. This is my last dive. I'm done. And so what I decided to do is I went in the sand and I started to kind of cruise along this valley, and then I saw a mutton off in the distance. And I start kicking up sand, but something I do that's a little different, instead of throwing the sand up in front of me and having a hard time seeing in front of me, I have my left hand out behind me, like my waistline, throwing sand up to where my gun and myself are between the sand being kicked up and the mutton. So it kind of cuts the distance just a little bit, and maybe just enough to where I can get a shot. And this dive was crazy. I mean, I was running out of air, so I decided to do a little bit of a lunge, took a long shot, and nailed him. And you'll see me kind of just slowly heading to the surface. Don't want to stress myself out too much, but also enough to where I can see the fish, horse them away from the structure. And you saw me kind of walk the dog, where I kind of just was keeping the line free of the structure, because that would be heartbreaking. Last drop, finally hit a fish, and he gets caught up on the rocks. But yeah, this was a crazy long dive, 81 feet. That was no exaggeration, and you'll even see on my watch once we hop in the boat, it was pretty gnarly of a dive. And yeah, thanks for joining me on that one.
Fun.
Captain Jack, what you got?
Dude, that guy made me work. He's not huge.
He's not as big as mine.
Not as big as Ben's, but
it's a nice fish, dude.
yeah, that was a long drop. if you made it to the end of the dive holding your breath with me, let me know in the comments
How
below.
long was it, Jack?
223.
All right, so he's 223. He's a psychopath.
You can
But you only need 113 to get a nice month.
Yeah.
Just so
Hey,
you
but
know.
Jack can show you how to gut him on the bottom. I mean, come on, dude.
Yeah, dude,
He can show you how to gut him
that
down
thing
there.
gutted itself.
Brain bleeding gutted on the bottom.
Yeah, look at that. 81.
Aye! Oh, don't forget to flex the chubs in there, yeah.
Dude, I don't know,
Hey,
dude.
hey,
I shouldn't have pulled it out.
Yeah, why'd you pull yours out?
Brothers and sisters.
Yeah. No, dude, 81 feet, 223.
That's,
Jeez.
you're a psychopath.
All right, you guys, keeping it super simple. Check this out. Just the old guy, light. I have some butter and some Cajun seasoning. I went ahead, lathered up melted butter on one side, sprinkled Cajun season on it, and then I just laid that side down on the pan, and then I did the exact same with the other side. And this is how I blacken the fish. And what we're gonna do next is, this is like the pre-making thing. Very simple. I've done it in a ton of my other videos, but after this is where we get into some nachos, so don't go anywhere. I'm excited about this one. All right, so we have everything in. The fish is still crispy, and what I'm gonna use a spatula, and I'm just gonna chop it up. And look at this. Look at this. It literally looks like chicken. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that with all of it. I'm gonna do something to make it a little. Check this out. Slicing and dicing in the pan so it gets all the goodness mixed in with the fish. I'm just gonna get it. I'm just gonna kind of put it over all the chips on top of nachos. Shredded cheese all over it. And I'm also gonna put some queso. And just drizzle it all over it. Shoot, I'm not gonna drizzle, I'm just gonna basically dump it on it. And then that's pretty much the only hardcore cooking, is the blackening of the fish. But we are going to put this stuff inside of the oven, and I just have it broiling on low. And it's just gonna sit on the top rack, let all the cheese melt, and then we're gonna garnish it with some other things. So believe it or not, this broiling actually only took maybe 3 minutes, if that, and look at that deliciousness. I gotta show you this. Look at how good that looks. Dude. This is gonna be crazy good. And then so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put some, I'm gonna go ahead, get some spinach and some greens, shredded over top of it. And then we got some salsa. I'm gonna spread it out. You can do sour cream. I have just Greek yogurt, which is, I think, tastes the same. Also have some tomatoes that I sliced up. And like so gourmet and delicious looking. All right, we gotta try it. I have pretty much everything on this one chip. Cheers, we'll see how good it is. You guys, it is as good as it looks. Probably better, because it's like chicken but better. This is so good. You guys have to try this. And you guys will have to comment below if you do try it. Let me know. Or if you've done it something similar in the past, let me know how it turned out for you guys. Give this video a thumbs up. If you're new, consider subscribing. I send out content every week and it's free to you. Also hit that notification bell so when I do post something, you guys are notified. And like always, guys, I'll see you next week for another adventure. Later.